Do you fear death? I would say that I have a healthy biological aversion to death, but my fears and concerns about it revolve less around dying than its implications for those around me. How loved ones will miss and grieve about me is what I'm worried about, more than sublimating into the void or whatever happens after we're gone. In that sense, losing a loved one is a much greater fear of mine than death itself. If you could, think about your feelings towards death as we talk about the anime episode in question today. I finally have been watching Violet Evergarden, and my major takeaway is that I should have seen this sooner. I don't know what's in the water over at Kyoto Animation, but their stuff is visually on its own level. Combining this excellence with a moving period piece about the horrors of war and finding your humanity is about as right up my alley as it gets. But you all already know that. This show has been out and praised for a long time now. I'm making this video because the other night I watched episode 10 of Violet Evergarden, titled Loved Ones Will Always Watch Over You. I was truly stunned by what I saw, and not in a YouTuber needs stakes to his video sort of way. I really sat there at my desk at 1 a.m. for 20 minutes after it ended, my brain trying to wrap its head around the masterpiece I had just seen. Out of curiosity, I opened IMDb and was pleased to see that this being the best episode of the season is not particularly controversial. But when I went to YouTube to see how the episode was covered, I was surprised to see that it was mostly reaction videos or video essays that cover the entirety of Violet Evergarden. So today, I want to make a video specifically covering this episode of the anime, and why I think it's basically a perfect episode of television. It's the epitome of Violet Evergarden's formula, but it also achieves some of the greatest depth of emotion I've seen without ever dipping into melodrama. We'll break down why this is great, and how it avoids common pitfalls to making a tearjerker. Let's talk about it. Before we get going, a crucial note. Most of the time, I make videos after finishing a series, which I think is common practice. But every once in a while, an episode of anime comes along that affects me so much I want to talk about it right away. I've done it before on this channel, and it's the case here. If you could you make sure to give spoiler warnings in the comments for the next few episodes and the movie? I want to be able to read and respond to comments safely. Thanks. Violet Evergarden is a very structurally sound show. The episodes are very, episodic in nature, and they follow a common formula. Violet ventures out to a client, they butt heads a bit as they both come to understand each other, and after a climactic moment where both Violet and the client learn something about themselves, she writes the perfect letter. Reducing it down to brass tacks like this can make it seem like I'm criticizing the show, but that couldn't be further from the case. The show has a main character that is complex and closed off in a way that makes us eager to learn more, and the client characters are all twisted and sad in their own ways. The show has a clever trick that keeps things fresh, too. Though Violet is our protagonist, our perspective tends to shift to the clients in each episode. This allows us to look into their heads and get the full weight of their emotions. But it also allows us to view Violet from a stranger's point of view. We learn about Violet through the supporting character's eyes, which really elevates a character who is as robotic as Violet at the start of the season. Her head wouldn't be a particularly interesting place to reside in for entire episodes, and internal monologues would be very similar to what she already says to those around her. She's going to change due to her interactions with others, not a long meditation session. Pulling us out of her head like this allows us to watch her every move closely, and see the compassion she has for those around her due to her actions. In this way, the story of Violet Evergarden's season is one long drawn-out thread of Violet's slow change, with each episode getting its own complete emotional core in the form of its minor characters. It's kind of the platonic ideal of episodic TV, to be honest. But that's part of what makes Violet Evergarden the anime so great. What is it about episode 10 that sets it apart even from its surrounding episodes? Right from the jump, this episode establishes its new point of view. Normally, we get to see Violet travel to the client. Maybe the doll agency received the writing request. Here, the first words we hear are from Anne, playing with her doll. We are going to be staying with Anne the entire episode, and we immediately see both her childishness and her insightfulness. We can feel that something is amiss, that Anne's mom Clara is clearly sick. But importantly, we know that Anne sees this too. Our perspectives are fully merged. Anne sees that the woman visiting her mother doesn't like her, but needs to act like she does. This episode hinges on us understanding Anne, coming to have the same doubts and fears that she does. The only way that this is possible is to root us in her point of view from the start. There's so many POV and pseudo-POV shots in this episode. This lets us observe Violet more closely than usual, her mechanical, doll-like mannerisms drawn into sharp relief. We know that something is wrong with Clara. That's obvious for everyone to see. But by locking us into Anne's perspective, we don't get access to any further information. We sneak glances at Violet and Clara working in the sunroom, but that's it. We have to watch from afar as Clara has health scares. Just like Anne, all we can do is hope that things get better. That's a surprisingly hopeless perspective to have, even for this anime. There are sad moments aplenty in the preceding episodes, but typically they accompany acceptance and mutual understanding. Here, we wallow away with Anne. Just like her, we are eager to interact with Violet, just to escape the isolation. And when Anne starts to break, and begs Violet to stop taking time away from her and her mom, we understand why she feels this way, the fears that are percolating in her heart. The climax of the episode comes about halfway through. After another health scare for Clara, Anne can no longer keep all of these feelings bottled up inside. The words come spilling out of her, their simplicity cutting directly to the heart of the matter. Anne knows that Clara is dying, and can't stand the thought that her mother is choosing these other people she's writing to over her. Anne is hurt and scared and frustrated. She makes it impossible to lie anymore by putting the truth out there in the open. We learn that she blames herself for her mom's illness, and hates that she made her mother cry. Violet comforts her, but not in the usual way. There's no grand solution, no easy happy ending. Here, the answer is that some things can't be changed, and sometimes the best we can do is to value the time that we have with loved ones. Anne realizing that Violet is human only as she leaves is the final reminder that this is just a child, and yet she's already had to burden so much. The following sequence of Anne reading the letters that her mother wrote to her is the final haymaker. Seeing Anne's life through these vignettes of her reading the letters is equal parts devastating and joyous. I mentioned in the intro that this episode avoids melodrama while making something intensely moving. Melodrama is defined as a work that derives its emotions from exaggerated plot, rather than character development. Melodrama is lacking because it needs things to happen to evoke emotions, rather than beginning with characters and having their needs and desires drive the plot. This ending sequence in the episode could be melodramatic, feel a bit heavy-handed, and use the twist ending and letters to try to evoke emotions. But by having the entirety of the rest of the episode let us live with Anne, understand her and her grief, and see why these letters are so special, it makes it the perfect ending. We want to see Anne live a full and happy life, and this is just fulfilling that in the best way. Loved ones will always watch over you, in other words. The grief will never fully leave, but neither will Anne's memory of her mother. Oh, and I know that I said that this last part was the ending, but I lied. Violet's return to the dolls is just as important to why this episode is great. I mentioned earlier that there are two plots going on at once in this show. Violet's over the course of the season, and Client's in each episode. This episode was light on Violet's storyline, but at the end here, that development comes rushing in like a dam has broken. This is a huge step for her character. She has come to know grief, has seen love in action, but this is the most complex understanding that she's shown yet. Violet is worried and cares about Anne, and has from the start. It explains so much about how she acted throughout the episode. She looked sad when Anne first saw her coming up the hill, and she could feel a bit cold even after she got to know Anne. It wasn't due to her being heartless, but the opposite. This is the most human moment Violet has had, and waiting until the last moment of an already spectacular episode gives it its full impact. I'm only 10 episodes in, but I have already been blown away by Violet Evergarden. It manages to be extremely moving without ever dipping into overdramatic. This 10th episode is the pinnacle of that approach, using little tweaks to its formula to maximize all of its strengths. At the end of it is one of the saddest yet uplifting episodes of anime I have ever seen, and I wanted to share why I felt that way with you. I also can't wait to get to the next installments in this series. I've heard the movie is amazing. And that ends this week's episode of Love and Anime. I hope you enjoyed and that you liked the new intro. I have a few more off-the-wall videos planned for the next couple of weeks, just trying to get creative with it. I hope you'll stick around for those too. If you liked the video today, liking and subscribing helps a ton, as does hitting the hype button on the mobile app. As always, I'm SlamAnime, and I'll see you next time.